I am getting ready to prime this door, and I thought I would make a short video showing how to paint a panel door. I've watched people paint these before, and there's definitely a method that gives the best results, and I'm going to go through that in this video. It's a simple video, I know, and it sounds, fairly trivial, like painting the door, who cares? But if you want the thing to look good, especially if it has some texture to it, that's supposed to look like wood grain, like a lot of those masonite doors do, then it needs to be painted correctly with a brush, unless you're going to spray it. If you can spray it, that's the best finish. And I'm going to be spraying these after, but spraying on top of a bad paintbrush job really shows up too. So best to do it the right way to begin with. And the way to do that is to start on the trim of the panels or the outside edge of the panels, like I'm doing here. Now, when painting the perimeter of the panels like this, you want to spend the most time on this actually to make sure that you don't have any big hunks of paint in there. Spend a little bit more time smoothing it out and making sure that there's no runs or anything like that. Painting the door when it's down on sawhorses like this is the best way to go. Even though it's kind of a pain in the ass to take the door off to do this, you'll save a lot of time when you're actually painting the door by doing this. And also, runs will not run when the door is flat like this. They'll just kind of pool and you'll be able to see them and take care of them immediately. Now, it might be somewhat tempting because you're working with smaller details here when you're doing this to use a smaller brush, but I really recommend using a normal size brush. Here I'm using one that's 2.5 inches wide, and I'm using that brush because it holds enough paint to do an area that's significant. If you have a smaller brush, you're really limited to how much paint you can get on at one time, and it's not going to flow out smoothly, and that's what you want to do, especially with latex paint, which dries faster and doesn't flow as smoothly as oil-based paint does. Now, after doing the perimeter of the panels, it is possible to stop and take a short break, and you can even let that paint completely dry before you move on to painting the panels themselves. It definitely won't hurt, as long as you have made sure that you've cleaned up any pools of paint that are hanging around, and don't let those dry up too much. Along with the brush, you can also use a small roller for doing the larger areas, but the roller can work to obscure that wood grain. If you're looking to maintain that, I would stick with a brush, because then you can follow the grain with the brush, and then the brush strokes would actually complement that grain rather than partly hiding it. The whole idea behind painting the door this way is to maintain a wet edge as you're moving along. So when you commit to painting an area, stick with it and move quickly until it's done. That way you'll avoid lap marks where the paint partially dries and then drags out as you brush over it with fresh paint. Then after you have the panels themselves done, then you need to do the rails. That's the horizontal parts of the door. And here I'm starting at the bottom, which is furthest away from the camera, and then I'm going to do the middle and the top. And notice that I'm not going further than I have to here, but then I'm not being super critically careful about how far it laps over onto the stiles. And the stiles are what's next in this, and they finish off the door. And these are the vertical members, or the sides of the door. And of course, once again, you want to keep the brush going up and down on this so that the brush strokes on these will be vertical. And in the places where the stile meets the rail, you want to back brush there a little bit, cutting in to where that joint is in the wood. Even if it's not wood and it's stamped in, there's kind of a transition there that you can aim for. All right, that's the primer coat done for this door. I'll let this dry overnight, and then I'll be able to hang it tomorrow. Now, when the weather warms up in the spring, I'm going to take all of these doors off again. I'm going to take the hinges off. I'm going to take the hardware back off, right down to the bare wood, bring them out back, and I'm going to spray the actual final coats of finish on there, which is just being more of this latex paint, except not primer this time. And the finish that you get from spraying is a lot smoother and a lot more consistent, or can be anyway, than doing it by brush or by roller or whatever. And it's considerably faster for sure. And the procedure for doing it, though, is the same as doing it like I demonstrated here. You want to do the perimeter of the panel first, then do the panel, then do the rails, and then the stiles and the edges of the doors last.